Hello, Emily.
Hi, Dan.
What are we talking about today?
I thought we'd try something different today.
I'm intrigued. What are we going to talk about differently?
I have an actual financial plan from an insurance company for a real person, and I want to review it with you and talk about what we think is good, bad, or ugly about it.
Welcome to the Science of Wealth, where we discuss the science behind financial planning and the art of learning and applying it. Okay, that is different. So, do you have that to share here? How are we going to do that?
Yeah, we've got it here, all redacted out, but ready to put up on the screen.
Okay, so looks like we have a plan here from Northwestern Mutual. I guess for anybody who's listening to this on Spotify or Apple or something, this is probably going to be a really good episode to actually go watch on YouTube rather than just listening to it. But for anybody who can only listen to it, I guess we'll try to over describe things a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I want to give a little summary here of the person in question, who we'll call Anne for everybody's context. She came to me and we met, and she was young. She's 31. She was not married, didn't have kids, nothing like that. She's working as a travel nurse, so moving around the country, and didn't have roots in place anywhere, didn't own a home, nothing like that. Very in a good place to start saving to set herself up for life.
Okay. Well, I guess let's just jump right into it. It looks like right off the bat, this is actually from 2022, so they didn't like go get a plan from Northwestern and then come to us the next day and ask us to work on this. This is their older plan. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, yep. She, when we were doing the kind of the data gathering with her, she said, "Oh, by the way, I had a financial plan I actually built a few years ago. Would it be helpful if I uploaded that?" And I said, "Yes, it would. Please show me."
All right. Well, thank you for sharing, Anne, and giving us permission to share for everybody else. So, I guess let's just go ahead and jump right into it. It looks like we had two financial advisors, two financial planners here. I see the insurance license for two of them, although it's redacted off here, and it looks like they had the title of financial representative. So, I guess we'll find out what that means maybe later on. So let's, I guess, look at hopefully the actual plan, okay, table of contents, whatever. Okay, excuse me, a recap of the facts. So it looks like when this plan was done, Anne was 28, born in 1994, and then household income 120,000, all earned income. So Emily, is that the plan as we understand it today? Is Anne making $120,000?
Absolutely not. When I met with her, she was making 73,000 annually, and based on the tax returns of the prior 2 years that I'd looked at, that had been the case for some time. I'm not sure where the 120,000 number came from in this plan. Maybe he was just her planner was feeling optimistic, or he was just guesstimating, but that is not the data we were given.
Okay, I mean that's kind of a big difference. You said 75, 76,000, something like that.
Yeah, 73 specifically this year, but the prior year was closer to 75.
Okay, and there's no reason we know of that she didn't like change careers or jobs, or like get a big bonus or something. They just 3 years ago said you make 120 or you're gonna make 120, and they built the plan from that.
Yeah, it sure sounds like it. She'd always been in the same career, which she'd gone to school for, that travel nursing, and she'd always done those travel positions. So, I mean, the pay can fluctuate slightly contract to contract, but not by that much in any instance I've ever seen.
Yeah, talking about almost double the income, so that's gonna be a problem. But okay, let's see how that shows up. Okay, we've got a balance sheet here showing total assets $25,823. Right out of the gate here, I'm seeing cash alternatives or cash equivalents that are almost certainly just being generalized. It says exactly $16,000, which most people don't have perfectly even number amounts in their accounts. It looks like you have a brokerage account with $148 in it, so maybe like a share of Apple or something. And then, okay, one pre-tax retirement account, an IRA rollover with $3,489, and then a Roth IRA with $6,286. And then liabilities, $50,553. So $10,153 in an auto loan, $35,000 exactly in a federal student loan in mom's name, so probably a plus loan or parental loan, and then another $5,400 in her name. And again, super round numbers, not normal in a financial plan. Maybe one in a whole batch, but seen a lot of very flat numbers here, which tells me they were just estimating or guesstimating.
Yeah, I think that's the case. And based on what I know of her situation presently, it is, of course, quite outdated. When I met with her, that auto loan and those student loans had been prioritized and she'd completely paid them off.
Well, I mean, good for Anne, right? $50,000 in debt in a little under 3 years is pretty good. So, I mean, I'll give her credit for that. I guess we'll see what that says about how much she's followed the plan, though. So let's see where we go from here. Okay, $120,000 in gross income. Again, obviously not correct. $35,099 in taxes and withholdings. I feel like when we worked on this plan, it was closer to like 34,800, so a little off, maybe like $200 off. But whatever, maybe it's a rounding error. And then right out of the gate here, $45,195 of fixed expenses, of which it looks like $4,600 a year was going to be for student loans, so those are gone now. $3,200 for other loans, presumably the auto loan, that's gone. So really, 37,000, of which 31,000 is a fixed expense. We're thinking like groceries, gas, travel, fun, subscriptions, and then $6,240 for primary residence. Does she have roommates? Does she have a spouse or somebody who's helping subsidize cost of rent or something like that?
She does not. And due to the travel of her work and everything, I know she has to have an apartment, like a more permanent residence in her home state, whatever that may be. And then as she travels, she has to also rent an apartment for the length of her contract. So she has kind of strange living expenses, but she never has roommates or anything, at least according to what she told us. She is just doing that all herself.
So that primary residence number is crazy low then, because I mean, we're thinking about like barely over $500 a month in rent. If we're renting two apartments or condos or whatever it is at a time, there's no way. There's no way her residence expense is that low. So simultaneously, the fixed expenses, we know that she's paid off debt since then, but they were assuming she was going to spend $45,195 or $3,766 a month on kind of just cost of living. And then we have $25,895 of committed goal funding, $2,158 a month. And then there's just $13,813 left over at the bottom of this. So if she's making only 73,000 or 75,000 a year prior, there's no way the goal funding or discretionary spending numbers are going to be accurate. And then the taxes will obviously be lower, but I think this is not going to math out the way we would want it to. So I think pretty obvious problem here.
Yeah, the numbers are definitely off. If her income is so much lower as we know it is, the percentage that they're estimating she can save is absolutely not feasible for her.
Well, terrific. Okay, and then we're apparently to a new chapter section. Protect. Your financial security comes first, protecting your income. Okay, so I guess we're doing insurance first. So first slide here, lifetime earning potential. Apparently calculating 5.7 million and change in lifetime earnings based on $120,000 of income with a 2.5% inflation rider from 2022 to 2054, so 32-year run there. And then calculating a lump sum replacement requirement of 2.3 million and change at a 6.26% rate of return. Is Anne married?
She is not.
Does she have kids?
She does not.
Sick mom or dad, disabled brother, sister, somebody she's taking care of?
Nope, she's got siblings, but they're healthy, self-sufficient, and her parents are doing fine.
Okay, so I don't understand why this is in here. Maybe other than just like as an FYI, but like this is a life insurance analysis. We're saying we need $2.3 million of death benefit to protect somebody from our loss of our income. But that doesn't make any sense because nobody's dependent on us. So that doesn't make any sense at all from just a planning standpoint. Again, like you can ask a life insurance analysis question just because. I'm going to suspect because this is Northwestern Mutual, the reason that this is the very first problem being described in the plan model is because their primary business is selling life insurance. But if somebody comes to me and they're single and they have nobody dependent on them, the first thing I'm going to show them is not going to be, and you need life insurance, because functionally they kind of don't.
Absolutely not, especially when, as we saw before, her savings rate was not adequate or possible for her to actually do adequately. She's not even saving into other retirement vehicles. I don't know that life insurance should be a priority.
Oh God! So I haven't looked further here, but you're saying that there's going to be some sort of life insurance funding, saving, investing strategy somewhere later on.
Oh, there's good stuff coming. You're going to love it.
No, I bet I'm not. Uh, Next slide here. This looks like just an infographic thing about disability. It says there's a 40% chance of temporary disability, and that if disability happens, it's going to be 2.1 years. Remind me what Anne does? Traveling physician, traveling nurse?
Travel nurse.
Okay. Um, I guess it's possible. There's a source here. It's from the individual disability insurance valuation tables from the Academy of Actuaries. So apparently, mathematically, in 2013, or at least based on data in the study that was done in 2013, there was a 40% chance of Anne becoming disabled. I assume we're going to see some disability insurance somewhere in this plan then.
We can only hope.
Okay, fair enough. Next page looked like infographic stuff about permanent life insurance being more than death benefit. Okay, so we're already pushing to do a permanent policy instead of a term policy, despite the lack of any need for a life insurance policy. Fine. Oh, and I guess we're done with insurance now because now we're on to a new chapter heading Grow, Plan for the Future, Retirement Strategies. Okay, we're just trucking right along then. First page, I guess, is I don't know what to call this, an infographic. It's showing, let me look at this. It's showing essentially all the account types. There's something called concentrated assets. I assume that's like your house, maybe. I'm not really sure what concentrated assets is supposed to be. But then there's deferred annuities, non-qualified accounts, qualified accounts, Roth accounts, and then those are flowing down into cash accounts, but also flowing over into a life insurance policy. And so the cash accounts and the life insurance policy, which there's like an arrow flowing back and forth between the life insurance policy and the other accounts. So it's kind of weird. But the life insurance policy fits into a box that makes up like a third of this infographic in a category called cash reserve. So apparently we're treating life insurance like a cash equivalent. And then we've got a secondary section of base income, which has annuities, Social Security, pension, variable income, maybe rental property, something like that. And that's all flowing into cash accounts. And then that's all flowing down to retirement income. And then there's a secondary flow through from the life insurance to a thing called legacy. So this is kind of a weird emphasis on life insurance again. Like, is life insurance an asset? Sure. Would it be one of the predominant things I'm looking at on an infographic about retirement planning? Probably not. I also like that there's a disclaimer down here. It says the primary purpose for life insurance is to provide a death benefit. So, like, I guess we can borrow cash value, or we could, convert this into an annuity or something. But I do think it's funny that life insurance is making up such a big part of this retirement income picture.
Yeah, if you're working on commission and you got to sell life insurance, you have to make it look important. It has to take up at least a third of the graphic. So it seems like you need it.
Whoa, you were getting so far ahead of yourself here, Emily. We don't know what the intent of these people are in showing life insurance. It is so presumptive to just say that that is the reason they would make life insurance be front and center.
I think I know, but sure.
All right. Well, you know what they say about assuming, so we'll hedge our bets for the time being.
Yeah. What's next? Let's see it.
It looks like just definitions of those categories. So the tax deferred, tax free, taxable, tax advantaged. It's just talking about funding for pre-tax versus after tax and how stuff is taxable or not taxable over time. So this is just kind of informational about the tax treatment of assets. I don't see anything crazy here. Life insurance is missing. So, no, it's not actually. It's all on the far right side. It is called tax advantaged, which it is not technically tax advantaged. There's a technical definition of tax advantage that life insurance does not fall into. But anyway, it says it can be accessed tax-free up to the value of the total premium payments. That's interesting because presumably there's costs of insurance or something in the policy that are going to not be returnable to me. It says policy loans can be taken tax-free. That is technically true, although then I have to pay interest back on my policy. And then it says dividends are not taxable income until they exceed the value of total premium payments. So that's true, but that really only applies in the case where I was going to surrender this policy and cash it out. So if I surrender it early enough, I'm not going to have a taxable gain because the cost of what I've invested in has been so substantial that I've essentially lost money on the insurance policy. So I don't see any inaccuracies there. I still think it's funny that we're putting life insurance with that stated, life insurance is for a death benefit protection as being just as important as your taxable accounts, your Roths, and your IRAs.
Yeah, well, my opinion, but sure, you gotta put it in there.
Remaining healthily skeptical over here.
Okay. Well, it's on the next page.
We have goal coverage at Anne's retirement, 100% covered. Okay, so whatever. We have not seen any suggestions as to how to save, invest, or grow wealth at all here, but apparently somewhere in here we're going to find out that her retirement is funded. She is going to need $2.7 million in change to retire, and that apparently is 100% covered, assuming a 2.5% rate of inflation, but we have not explained where that is coming from. I mean, like 2.5% rate of inflation, sort of close to the historic average, but where we're getting 2.7 million from otherwise has not necessarily been explained yet. So we're jumping straight to the bottom line up front. And can retire. Hell yeah.
Also, is the 2.7 present value or future value? Do we know?
I have to assume that's future value because if it I guess that's a good question actually, because this plan doesn't clearly state up front whether her the goal, like, can she retire today or can she retire in 32 years when she's of retirement age? Like, that's not actually clearly stated here. It says these values are reflected in today's dollars though, so that's definitely present value. So she needs $2.7 million in present value, but she'll probably need more, by the time she reaches retirement age.
Right. Okay, well, I'm psyched to see that she's 100% covered for some reason. I'm curious how we're going to achieve that.
No, I guess we'll hopefully find out here. Okay. Retirement. Okay, so here's the explanation of how we got the number here. So Anne is going to retire. She's going to retire at 60 and live to 92, I assume. So from 2054 to 2086. And then her ideal retirement income, which is fixed, is from 2054 to 2086. It's $84,000 in present value, inflating at 2.5%. And then that amount in future dollars will be 185,116. Okay. And then, she also needs money for whole life insurance. Okay, so we are definitely buying some whole life insurance. And apparently she will need today $5,794 to fund that. And then, no. Okay, apparently she's going to pay for this from 2054 to 2058. So I guess there's going to be some insurance premiums due for the first 4 or 5 years of retirement that she's going to need to fund for at 5,000. Okay, I don't know where the life policy is other than just that death benefit we saw earlier, but apparently she's going to need to pay for some life insurance, but only for another 4 or 5 years into retirement.
Sure, why wouldn't you? Okay.
Many reasons, but okay. Your skepticism is my skepticism is being assuaged. I'm seeing some clear evidence that we're going to do some whole life, because now on the next page on retirement asset, we've got a list of resources for this. Okay, so we're supposed to end up with a Roth IRA, a rollover IRA, a taxable account, and a whole life policy with some accumulated cash value in it. The Roth IRA we saw earlier, so it has $6,286 in it right now. Apparently, we're going to invest that at a rate of return of 6.64% pre-retirement and also 6.64% post-retirement. So we're going to invest super conservatively for the next 32 years until retirement. And then we're going to turn around and we're going to invest in the exact same way that we invested during our young, high-risk accumulation years where we were being too conservative. And we're going to stay just as conservative as we were during our accumulation years of retirement. I don't know why this isn't broken down. Like, you'd expect something like 7, 8, 9% for pre-retirement, and then like maybe 5 to 6% for retirement. But apparently, we're just going to do a clean average 6.64 from now into infinity. I don't understand the logic here, but that's how they built this.
It fits better on the report because there's just one clean line of data that you don't have to break down.
It has its own column. You could just do 6.64, whatever. Okay. We have an IRA rollover here, which is also a traditional IRA. Apparently, retirement assets and type for some reason need to have different names. Current balance, the 3489 we saw before, same 6.64% rate of return. So we're expecting that the Roth is going to get to 890,000 and change. We're expecting the traditional is going to get to 27,263. There's got to be some funding further down here because there's no way the Roth is going to, just because it's twice the size today, is going to grow to be like 40 times bigger than the IRA. Taxable accounts, brokerage account. It says open a new account. I thought she had a taxable account. I thought there was like $148 earlier that we saw.
Yeah, it sure said that earlier in the report, but it looks like they wanted to open a new one. Clean start, I guess.
I mean, like $148 isn't much, so maybe, but 6.26% rate of return. I'm not seeing an explanation as to whether that's a pre or post tax rate of return. I'm assuming that's a pre tax rate of return because otherwise I'd expect to see a different post tax rate of return in the rollover IRA related to like taxable distributions from an IRA or something. So I'm assuming it's a gross rate of return. I don't know why it's lower. I'm confused as to why it's, call it 38 basis points lower, but it is going to grow to be over $2 million. So we're going to go from zero to $2,066,000. Okay. And then whole life accumulated value. Apparently we don't have it yet. We're going to open a new one. No stated rate of return at all, but we're expecting it to grow to 362,000. So are we going to put $362,000 in a whole life policy? Is that what this is trying to tell me?
It sure sounds like it, just based on the page we're looking at.
Um, is that mathematically possible? Because we saw on the last page there was, or the page before, yeah. So she's going to be paying $5,794 a year from 2054 to 2058. I'm assuming that's the annual premium. I don't think 32 times 5,700 equates to this. Maybe it does. So maybe you can check me. There's got to be some rate of return assumed in there. There's got to be some sort of dividend or interest being applied to that. There's no way. Could we be at what, like 100, maybe like 170, 180 after 32 years if it was just cash and nothing else?
Maybe it clarifies on another page. We can only hope it breaks it down.
I guess we're going to find. We're also not going to contribute to that whole life. Apparently, we're only going to contribute to the Roth IRA and taxable account. There's no stated date range, but we are going to put $6,000 in present value into the Roth, and then 14,102. So this has got to be that 20,000 something number we saw earlier about like dedicated funding of goals. That's got to be where those are coming from.
Mm-hmm. The one that she cannot actually afford with her current salary. Yeah.
Yeah, well, based on the optimistic assumption of making almost double the money she actually makes, you could afford it. But yeah, it doesn't seem very affordable here. I'm seeing blank spaces for employer cap or increase rate. So we're not going to increase these contributions. We're just going to do $6,000 present value, $14,000 or $14,102 present value for the next 30. I'm assuming it's for the next 32 years. It doesn't have a date range, so maybe this is through the entire plan. I'm not sure. I also don't know how she'll fund that when she's retired and doesn't have earned income, but that's besides the point. And then no employer contributions. There's no 401k here. There's no pension plan here. So she's never going to contribute to an employer plan. We're just going to solo fund this forever. This actually raises a question. Is she a W-2 employee when she's a travel nurse, or is she acting as a 1099 contractor?
So it depends based on the contract she takes. When I met with her, she did actually recently get access to a 401k with a match from the job that she has and had been newly contributing to that. So whoever built this plan didn't know that, but they also didn't account for the fact that that is an option for her in her line of work. It's not anywhere in this report that they built her.
I'm somewhat sympathetic to not like inventing a retirement plan that doesn't exist for the purpose of assuming that you're going to get a match or something. But I just find it really weird because if she was self-employed 1099, then you'd want to think about like solo 401ks or SEP IRAs or something like that as a really good savings vehicle because then we can do more or less than Roth limits or IRA limits. If this whole savings goal of $20,000 a year or $20,102 a year, like that would all fit in a solo 401k employee side contribution, whether you're covered by an employer plan or not. And obviously, if you worked at an employer, you definitely could do the same thing through your employer's 401k or their 403b or something. So I don't get why we're doing this outside of an employer plan, even if she didn't have one in 2022. Presumably, again, self-employed should be able to do it. W-2 employee, she should be getting access to it. Pretty much all the big hospitals and health clinics have really robust retirement plans because doctors participate in them and doctors need tax shelters like crazy. So it's just very bizarre to me that there's like a ton of money flowing into these accounts. The rates of return are essentially flat across the board. For some reason, the taxable is going to get a lower rate of return than the retirement accounts, but presumably these numbers are pre-tax. And then somehow we're going to have $362,000 in a whole life policy, but apparently we're not going to fund it or contribute to it, at least not here.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure maybe it's explained even further, but it's not looking like it lines up to me.
Okay, well, we'll hope that this is clarified elsewhere. Okay, we just have the great hodgepodge of asset classes showing why it's important to diversify because different assets do better or worse in every year. This is a classic chart. We have the definitions of all those classes for people who need to know the definitions of all those classes. We have rolling returns are better over longer periods than looking at things in isolation. This is all just educational stuff. Okay, action steps. So maybe this is going to tell us how we're going to accomplish all this specifically. So action steps, start making progress, take it one step at a time, and you never have to hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. I have questions. So I would love to reach out. Okay, your financial plan summary. So here's a high-level overview of your plan that outlines the major milestones and key takeaways to your goals. Okay, so life insurance. So we're going to buy a $332,938 permanent policy with an estimated monthly premium of $483. Okay, so that's where we're getting our $362,000 and change for the accumulated policy. But didn't it say she needed $2.3 million in life insurance to protect her non-children, non-spouse, non-family?
It sure did. We have to think about them.
So we are recommending life insurance. It can't be for the death benefit because there's nobody for it, even though the disclaimer earlier said that the primary purpose of life insurance is for the death benefit. So it has to be as an investment vehicle because there's nobody to actually protect with it. Okay, so we're foregoing better savings vehicles or actual wealth accumulation tools for the purposes of selling a life insurance policy. Your hypothesis was correct, Emily. They are just recommending life insurance for the sake of selling life insurance.
Well, if the shoe fits.
Yay. Okay, then retirement savings, accumulating $3.3 million. I thought she needed a different amount. Or, again, that was the present value. The 2.2 or 2.3 we saw was present. So future value, she needs $3.3 million in change in 2054, starting with $9,775 with saving $20,102 a year. And then that's going to add up. I'm assuming this is a multiplier here to $1,239,092. And then no employer contributions ever. She's never going to get a match ever. Growth 6.39% a year. I'm assuming that's like a weighted average from those earlier rate of return numbers. So she's going to save 1.2 million and change. She's going to get an rate of return that produces another 1,715,000. And then that life insurance policy on the left side there is going to grow to be 362,000, even though there is no stated rate of return in the earlier analysis. So that's the plan. Or at least that's how we're going to save for this retirement thing.
Is there any action steps around like disability insurance or any other areas of planning that we're coming to, or we're just, this is it?
Not that I'm seeing now. And this is honestly, it is a really good question, though, because unless we find disability insurance somewhere further in this, then the biggest risk that actually hurts Anne becoming disabled, not being able to pay her bills or make a living, is not being insured against. But we sold her some life insurance that is worthless to her for the death benefit, its primary purpose, and is a suboptimal wealth accumulation tool relative to the available retirement plans or even just the taxable brokerage that's already being recommended.
Well, maybe she just doesn't want a comprehensive plan. I don't know how to think around that one. Maybe she's just willing to risk it all, that 40% chance of disability that they told her she has.
I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I've recommended insurance to plenty of clients who've shrugged their shoulders and said no. I guess is Anne already, like, does she have any health conditions or something that would make it her unable to get disability insurance?
No, she's very healthy. We talked about it. She loves hiking and she takes good care of herself, eats well, no chronic illnesses or anything.
Okay, so no excuse. That's the answer. We're ignoring personal risk. I guess we also didn't see any home, auto, umbrella insurance. She's too young for long-term care to be a big deal. Errors and omissions, malpractice. I guess it would be malpractice since she's in the healthcare field. But no other insurance, just this life insurance and the disability analysis.
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. There was no record of them reviewing her other insurance policies or other details like her cash flow situation or more. She has short-term goals, I imagine, beyond retirement when she's 60. Does she ever want to buy a house? Does she want to keep travel nursing? There doesn't seem to be any factoring in of changes here. it just looks like she's going to be 31 years old doing the same thing forever, plodding along until she retires.
Yeah. I suppose you could say, well, she could pull principal out of the Roth or take some money back from the taxable brokerage to buy that house or pay for that next car or the wedding or something. Like, if money's fungible, we can definitely use some of that for those purposes. But I feel like then we would be shortchanging the retirement assumption here. So then, if this is all that's required to be saved to fund the retirement goal, it's concerning to me that nothing that's going to happen between well, this was a couple of years ago, when she was 20, 28, 29 is what it said earlier. So this plan assumes that she will have no major life expenses above her normal day-to-day cost of living from now into forever, which is just obviously untrue.
Right. And when she and I had a conversation, one of her concerns was, I have this lumpy income because I contract based work, every few weeks or months, I technically have a new job. And she said, I want to talk about what's an adequate emergency fund for myself. How do I deal with this somewhat inconsistency in as my jobs? And that was something she was very concerned about that I don't see covered or talked about in this plan here is like, okay, how much does she actually need to have in her emergency fund because their situation is a little bit more abnormal than most people's?
Yeah, it's actually pretty concerning because this plan is already being way too generous with her income assumptions. So, I mean, functionally, if she averages, let's say 75,000, 73,000, whatever, you could use that through the plan. But a way you might want to approach that from a conservative plan development standpoint would be to discount her income. Say, hey, in any given year, how many months do you not work? Oh, I'm between jobs for 2 months out of the year. Okay, why don't we take a 1/6 discount to your income and try to build a plan that's going to function with the assumption that we're going to be out of work for some stretches where we might have contracts that pay more or less or otherwise earn less, in the context over time. Just that way, then if you do have a normal year where you make decent money, then that's extra. And otherwise, then we've kind of planned for sort of the worst in that you might not make as much money on a going basis.
Right. I think overall this plan just isn't as conservative as I would like to see between that and the assumption that she passes away at 92 for some reason, the lack of insurance, the I think somewhat low rates of inflation. I know it's kind of the average overall that they're using there, but I would use a higher one to be conservative in a plan that I had built.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before, right? But when we build plans, we like to have good inflation, bad inflation. Good inflation applies to like your salary, your raises, your bonuses. We like to assume that that's going to do just the CPI, and then bad inflation, we like to assume a rate of maybe 1.5% inflation on your expenses and your costs and your bills. So that way, there's just this buffer of conservatism built into the design of your plans. That way, if things don't go perfectly or in a nice linear way, there's a little bit of room for error. And that gives you some wiggle room in reality. Whereas if you're super generous with your assumptions, which this plan is not only being really generous with the income, but also the inflation assumption, then in that situation, now you have no room for error. And so if the plan doesn't go accordingly, you're kind of in deep trouble.
Yeah, I just didn't love seeing a plan like that for someone who's so young and has such a long, bit of time between when she's actually going to retire. A lot could change, and I don't see that being considered here.
Yeah, well, and again, just the lack of life goals. Okay, let's see if there's anything else here because this just says the summary. So maybe there's the goal calendar. So this is for the next 12 months. These are just savings. Okay, so we're going to put the 480 to the insurance policy, and then we're going to put $616 into a Roth IRA. But then the month after, we're going to start doing 489, and then we're going to do $1,447 into a taxable account in January this year. But then in February, it's going to be 1,150. This plan also, if I go back to page, I'm on page 22, right? If I go back to page 1, this plan is from September of 2022. So we're just gonna backdate. What is this? 2, 4, 6, 8. We're gonna backdate like $17,000 of contributions to these accounts somehow magically. This doesn't make any sense. I also don't know why there's a lump sum in the first year. I'm confused. I'm confused by this.
Right. And she gave no indication that she had the ability at the start of the year to do a larger contribution or anything like that. Her contracts they don't work that way. So I don't know why they're hoping she could do that.
Well, and back to the reality of her income being 75,000 in that neighborhood, This when I look at $2,500 the first, or $2,100 on a going basis here, we're talking about saving $25,000 a year, which is 1/3 of her income. Like, we're talking about like a 33% savings rate, which is super high for anybody, let alone somebody who is only making $70,000 a year. Like, it's easier to save that when you have a really high income. It's really hard and she's not low income. She's kind of around like an American household average, but like, saving 30% of your income is not a behavior of the American household average. I know that they're probably building this from the assumption that she's making $120,000 a year, but she's definitely not making $120,000 a year.
She's also paying double rent that they weren't accounting for, so her expenses are higher than this thinks they are.
Optimistically, maybe they thought that would live in the 13,000 of discretionary expenses, but like, again, she doesn't actually make that much money. This makes no sense to me. The funding goals here could be realistic for somebody, but the fact that essentially a quarter of our savings, or just shy of a quarter of our savings, is going to go to life insurance that you don't need, and then we're going to fund a Roth, and then we're going to do a taxable for some reason instead of again Roth solo 401k, Roth 401k 403b through work, or anything like this. This just does not make any sense to me. You've got a great plan is what the next page says, and apparently there's some sort of online portal where you can look at that plan. Oh gosh.
Okay. Also, when I spoke to her real quick, I asked her, do you like that portal? Is it beneficial to you? Are there any tools in there? And she said, oh, I didn't know there was one. They didn't tell me. I don't know how to access it. So I don't know what that page was detailing, but she didn't seem to really be educated on it.
In their defense, they did tell her about it in writing.
I don't know what she read. Each and every page.
Which, I mean, most people don't. That's the honest truth. I mean, it's part of why big 40-page, 80-page, 100-page financial plans have gone out of style. So they just gather dust on the shelf. Like, people don't want to read through them. Maybe one or two curious people. The engineers definitely want to read through it. But, like, most people are just going to be like, great, so thanks for that. What do I do? Gosh. Okay. Assumptions page. So I'm going to guess this is the end of the plan. I'll pull 16 more pages in this plan. Good Lord. So inflation, 2.5%. Social Security inflation is lower than inflation. I guess that's conservative as a setting of expectations. Social Security usually matches to inflation, though, so kind of strange. Rate of return, 6.39% growth to retirement. 6.56% rate. This doesn't make any sense. We're going to have a higher rate of return on average in retirement than we do today. This makes no sense at all. Okay, whatever. Percentage surplus saved pre-retirement, 0%. Surplus saved in retirement. So yeah, we're going from 0% funding to 100% funding. Fine. Retirement date targeting January 14th, very specifically in 2054. Taking Social Security at 67, which would be full retirement age for Anne. Scheduled benefits 50%. I'm assuming they didn't get her Social Security statement. They just assumed 50% wage replacement would be my guess about what that means. I'm not familiar with this software specifically, so I could maybe guess something else, but whatever, 50%. Mortality 92, not sure where that's coming from. Actuarially, Anne should be living to 84, 85. You see a lot of plans that end at 90 or end at 100. I've never seen 92 before, so that's kind of oddly specific. Apparently living in Virginia, so Virginia taxes and all that, that's fine. U.S. citizen, single, okay, that's fine. Income, still $120,000 for some reason, growing at the rate of inflation. Social Security, assuming $44,162. And then growing at a lower rate for some reason in this. The retirement income, residents apparently going to rent until 2054, and then we are not going to rent anymore, but there's nothing about buying a house here, so she's just going to be homeless in retirement. Cool. A $31,000 fixed expense from now until, okay, so that was her fixed cost living stuff without the debt built into it, okay. And then, yeah, retirement rates of return here, again, weird in that they're kind of non-level. There's also apparently no rate of return on the taxable account in the assumptions here, so I don't know if her account was going to grow because of the $14,000 in contributions, or if it was going to grow because of contributions and interest. I assume interest was in there. Non-retirement savings account 1.25%. That makes sense for 2022. Rates were low because rates were just facing the sort of increases back from the COVID crash, bringing rates down to 0. Federal state tax exemption stuff, that's fine. estate tax. I don't think Virginia has one, or if they do, I'm not familiar with it, at least off the top of my head. So I'll give them a mulligan on there. Again, just a lot of weird assumptions in here that I would not use for a plan, and just a lot of missing data as far as like your life, your goals, your situation, anything that's going to happen between now and death. Like in this plan, there's just 2 life events. There's the day we deliver this plan and you start making all these savings and investments, and then there's the day you retire and then you die, and there's like nothing else happening in this plan.
I'm also a little bit concerned about the homelessness being considered a fact for your plan. That's not good.
Presumably that's going to be accounted for in the ideal retirement income of 185. Like surely you could spend 185. I have not sat here and done the math to figure out like if that fixed expense just inflates to 185,000 at 2.5%. I'm skeptical, but maybe the rent and all that is baked into that number. But yeah, still weird that we never buy a house at any point in our life or buy a permanent residence at any point in our life, and very strange that the rent just goes away, given that that's not addressed.
Well, I guess nothing's perfect. I don't know.
Fair. Fair enough. Okay, anything else in this plan? Oh, okay, so we have the disclaimer. Actually, let's take a second to look at this. So who we are, yep, Northwestern Mutual, big investment insurance company, cool. Okay, so here, this is all tiny text. I'm going to try to make this bigger, more legible if I can here. How do I, there we go. So the person working with you may have the title financial representative, financial advisor, wealth management advisor, referred to here as representative or representatives. Okay, so then what titles do we have earlier? Financial representative. Okay. So we're on what, page 25? Yeah. So they're both financial representatives. All representatives are agents of Northwestern Mutual. In this capacity, we're able to sell and service various types of products, such as life and disability, income insurance, and annuities. So yeah, we're insurance agents. We can sell you stuff. They're part of Northwestern Mutual's exclusive distribution system. Terrific. And then only agents there can do it. Okay, and then if you don't want to buy a Northwestern product, you can't buy a Northwestern product, or if they don't make one for you, they might sell you something else. Okay. I'm assuming this is the advisor's name, is a registered representative, and is also a registered. So this person has their securities license or a securities license. They are licensed to sell and service mutual funds from hundreds of fund families, 529 plans, covered L plans. Some registered people offer stocks, bonds, ETFs, other securities. And then this person, presuming these are the same person, are licensed to present to you advice in this plan regarding the investments, how you should invest, the asset allocation, the probability analysis. Okay. And then if they have the title financial advisor or wealth management advisor, then they're representative of Northwestern. I think this is maybe wealth management something. I'm sure maybe it's explained over here on the left. It probably is. Let's see. Northwestern Mutual Investment Services, Northwestern Mutual Wealth Management Company. Okay. So not a financial advisor, not a wealth management advisor. So then very important. Northwestern Wealth Management Company representatives offer investment management advisory services based on his or her qualifications, as well as trust and private client services. So because this person didn't have the title of financial advisor or wealth management advisor, they can't do fee-based business. So they're not actually able to do this plan just as for the plan itself. They have to do it on a commission basis. And this explains a lot. So they cannot manage money for this client, and they can't give them recommendations that pertain to non-product transactions. That's a regulatory issue, where essentially when somebody is licensed only as an insurance agent or only as a broker, all their advice has to be solely incidental to the sale of an insurance or an investment product. So because neither of these advisors are investment advisor representatives, they don't have a Series 65 or Series 66 license, they can't talk about any of that other stuff. They can only talk about like the life and disability insurance, because then they can sell those and say it's solely incidental. And they can only talk about putting money into the Roth IRA or only put it into the taxable brokerage, because a 401k is a held away asset, meaning that we can't claim that our advice about a 401k is solely incidental to the sale of a product, because I can't sell them a product in their 401k. So that's why this plan is so empty. They're not licensed to talk about anything other than specifically planning items that pertain to the stuff they're licensed and able to sell to this client.
Well, that certainly answers a lot of questions about why it is so empty. They're making sure they're following the law, I guess, and just doing what they're allowed to do.
I mean, yeah, and fair enough. But when you tell somebody I'm going to make you a financial plan, and really all it is a sales tool in disguise, or maybe it's not, maybe it's explained somewhere else here. I'm going to say it's in disguise though. But when somebody says this is my financial plan, and all it is product sales recommendations or savings investment recommendations, that's not a financial plan. It's missing way too much data to be a financial plan. And then it looks like this is the disclosure related to the second person, right? Is not licensed to sell or discuss securities or investments at all. So this person must only have an insurance license. Person could have letters. Do these people have any letters or these CFPs or anything like that?
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Well, at least then they're not required to be ethically fiduciaries. What we do, your representative will help you define your financial needs, assess your current circumstances, compare them with your goals, and chart a path to a more secure financial future. Your representative has developed this plan with you to determine whether or how your needs can be met using any of the products and services your representative can offer you. You are under no obligation to purchase anything. So yeah, this is not a financial plan at all. This is a sales document. That's what this is. And it looks like the rest of this is just, hey, you don't have to do anything with us technically. But yeah, once your representative has prepared this plan for you and delivered it to you, your financial planning engagement with Northwestern Mutual has terminated, because again, they can only get paid if you buy stuff. So they probably didn't talk to her about the planning portal thing that was referenced a page or two ago, because she's not a client after this, and unless she buys stuff, they don't care. So terrific. Has no other further obligations to give you advice, recommendations, or guidance. Yep. Yeah, and then here down
right.
here further.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people can do planning for a fee down here. If they do planning for a fee, then some of the disclosures here don't apply to you. Good Lord.
Oh, good. Well, that explains, she did tell me she tried to call them with a couple follow-up questions, and she was trying to figure things out, and she said, I can't get a hold of my financial planner. He's not answering me. And then finally, Northwestern Mutual kind of referred her basically to the phone tree, and she got some generic person who wasn't that helpful. And she said, I can't get a hold of my planner. That would explain it.
Because you don't have a planner, you have a broker, and the broker made their sale, I assume anyway. So I guess we'll wrap up on this, because I'm going to guess the rest of this is all just long form disclosure. But how your representative gets paid? Your representative is compensated only when you take action by purchasing insurance, investments, or advisory services. Your representative does not charge a separate fee for financial planning and does not receive any compensation for helping clients analyze where they stand compared to their financial goals, except certain wealth management advisors who offer fee-based planning, which, as we've seen in the disclosures, these guys were not, or these gals were not. I guess I don't know who they were. Okay, is there anything else in here? Disclosures, some check. Guys, yeah, this is boilerplate. How many pages is this? We're starting this on page 25. It's 40 pages. There's 16 pages of disclosures in this plan. So this plan is 25 pages long, or 24 pages long, including probably 10 infographic pages. And the disclosures are almost as long as the body of the thing. This hurts. Okay, let's get to the end, Emily. How did this work out for Anne? What did Anne actually do?
So she did buy the whole life policy, as is heavily emphasized in this supposed plan that she got. And she spent a few years paying in those premiums, $500 a month. She put in a total of $17,500 into this policy. After some education and thoughts and review of her goal, she was like, hey, this actually isn't what's best for me. I got to get out of this. And the cash value that she received when she wanted to leave this product was $327. So she put in $17,500 and received $327 after many years of investing in it. I say that loosely, investing. And not to mention the opportunity cost of her not putting that $17,500 into any other account that could have been growing.
Okay. Anybody who's watching or listening to this at home, I'm gonna call for a pause here for a second. And if you are easily offended, you should stop listening now. So that was your warning. What the fuck? I'm sorry. I don't even know where to start here. Like, I get it. These are brokers. These are salespeople. They're just masquerading as financial planners or financial advisors, or their official titles, registered representative. This is just absolute financial abuse. I cannot fathom a universe in which you look at somebody in their late 20s with no children, no family, nobody who depends on them, and you say you should put a huge amount of money into this permanent life insurance policy. I can't imagine the practicality then of then recommending to them. I'm assuming Class A mutual funds in
Yep.
the Roth and taxable. I had this conversation in Napa the other week, but essentially I asked the question, like, is there any recognition of the fact that there's actually no best interest case for a Class A mutual fund? Because if you're a CFP professional and you're fiduciary to your clients at all times when rendering financial advice or financial planning, then you should have to disclose to them that if there's a Class A mutual fund, there's also a no load version of that fund out there that they could purchase and not pay a commission on and not pay trailing fees on. And so the idea that any CFP professional could recommend an A share is essentially like morally bankrupt. These guys, I guess, are not CFP professionals, but the idea that you're going to recommend this single person buy life insurance, sink $17,500 into it, and then leave them with $327 out of it, right? And maybe you bought life insurance, you had life insurance protection the whole time for all those children you don't have and that spouse you don't have. Okay. And then you're going to put your money, you're going to take a 5.75% haircut on all of your retirement savings just because these brokers hid a pitch as a financial plan and called their pitch a financial plan. It is fucking disgusting. It's absolutely morally reprehensible. And the idea that anybody would defend this behavior, that anybody would be in supervision for this, that a company would have people doing this and say, good job, is just absolutely insane to me. I cannot fathom being these people, affiliating with these people, employing these people, or for that matter, being an advisor anywhere else in this Northwestern ecosystem and having the fucking gall to say, well, we're not all bad apples. Absolutely fucking atrocious. I'm going to stop because I'm just going to have profanity for fucking days.
Yeah. And that's the kind of the feeling that she had when we were reviewing this. This is a woman who was very hardworking. She was an excellent saver. She'd paid off those student loans, as we said. She paid off her car loan. She imagined saving that $500 into investments while still earning that $73,000 a year that we said, not the $120,000 that they thought she was. She's very diligent, saver, worker, super organized, otherwise smart woman who was just completely misled by this representative that she had gotten in contact with or had actually reached out to her. She did not seek them out.
Okay. I'm just going to stop. No, I'm not. I'm just going to say Northwestern Mutual, get fucked. I'm sorry. Just absolutely get fucked. All right. Now I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah. That's kind of the summary of it all. And that was a conversation that we had to have with her and other people that have been in a similar situation. Obviously, these numbers and stuff pertain to her specifically only. But that's not a conversation that I enjoy having with people, is having to sit them down and say, hey, this product that you've been sold, this is how bad it is. And yeah, you can get out of it, but you're not getting back anything that you put into it. It was just essentially a total loss for you.
Yay. There's that expression, dollar you lose on a bad investment was spent on your investing education. I can't imagine spending 100% of my savings for 3 years or almost 100% of my savings for 3 years on my investing education, but I guess Anne got a really good education.
She did, and that's part of why she agreed to let us share this, of course, with her information redacted, but she said, yes, if that helps educate other people so this doesn't happen to them, please do. I cannot believe this happened to me. I can't believe it's legal and that there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, that sums it up. Okay, well, aside from learning what a morally reprehensible, utterly bankrupt set of financial advisors or brokers she had a couple of years ago, what have we learned, Emily? What is the great takeaway from the last couple of weeks since you were last in the podcast? Let me ask what I'm going to hope is a bright and optimistic question here.
A bright and optimistic question. We encounter all these negative things like this, right, that we do have to deal with, but there is still plenty of people I meet that have had good advice. There are good financial planners out there. That's great. I love to see, despite the bad situation that Anne was in, she's a good saver. She's a hard worker. She's 31 now. I'm still in communication with her, and there's still time to fix it is kind of the big takeaway, because we caught it not as early as I would have liked, but early enough. She got in touch with me and said, hey, can you review this thing I have? So even if you think you're in a good financial position, you're like, I've already talked to an advisor, I've already talked to a planner, I'm set up for retirement. Maybe get a second set of eyes on it. Every good planner I know is happy to do that. Take a look at it, give you some advice. that is my big takeaway is there's bad situations out there, but get it reviewed. It can be fixed. Sooner is better than later. It's worth checking.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't really like being in the position of having to critique other ethical, competent financial planners' work. I think there's reasonable parties or reasonable opinions may differ, right? There's a reason that I might recommend something you wouldn't recommend, and we both have good bases for it. But I gotta say, if all you've gotten out of your financial planning engagement is a pile of products, or you just cracked open a couple of accounts, and now that you're thinking about it, we never did talk about the estate plan. We never did talk about taxes. We never did talk about home and auto insurance. We never did talk about my debt or my budget or my cash flow. 100% what Emily said. Go get a second opinion. Go find a fee-only financial planner. That's it. I'm sorry. There's just I don't have a better recommendation than that.
I think really understand how that person is getting paid too. It's in the disclosure, it's in there somewhere, but they don't make it easy to find. I would very clearly ask whoever I'm working with, how are you getting paid?
Well, and go to the NAPFA website, and there's a sworn affidavit form where you can make your financial planner fill out exactly what they get paid, exactly what any third parties get paid. And if they give it to you in percentages, be like, great, do the math for me and convert that into dollars. Like, it's not that hard to do. It shouldn't be that hard to do. All business runs on dollars, not percentages at the end of the day. Ask the questions. I just feel terrible for Anne. I feel terrible for people who get taken in by this shit all the time. I'm going to stop.
Yeah, we could end it there for today, but I cannot emphasize enough what we've covered today in this episode.
Get a real financial planner. That's the moral of the story.
The Science of Wealth is produced by My Wealth Planners, a registered investment advisor in Colorado. The theme song is This Is Your Time by Dan Phillips. The podcast is intended for educational purposes only and is not investment advice or any other form of advice. Not all material discussed on the podcast is appropriate for every individual in every circumstance, so you should consult with a certified financial planner, tax professional, or legal professional as appropriate before attempting to apply any of the subjects, strategies, or tactics discussed on the podcast.